how conventional, organic, and regenerative farming practices are all going to eventually merge in the future of production agriculture. That's what we're talking about with my cast here in the Granary. You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? And the best part, you're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to the Granary. Hey guys. All right, you heard the topic. I believe that regenerative practices are catching on a little more promptly than I predicted that they would. You and I both read Gabe Brown's book, Dirt to Soil. It was only a few years ago. And I see a lot of elements of this, and because I think there's a focus on soil health. This is a topic custom made for you because you've said my sustainable path and my high yield path are converging because they're not mutually exclusive practices. Go.
They're not mutually exclusive. And I used to think as a younger farmer, even when we started XtremeAg, and I was wanting to raise 400 bushel corn, I thought it took more and more fertility. I thought we had to basically buy that yield. It doesn't work. I've learned that from Chad. I've learned that from Temple. It doesn't work. You can't buy that yield. If you could put out enough fertilizer to raise 400 bushel corn, we'd all do it just to say we've done it. It's exciting.
500.
Yeah. There you go.
So you've got a great story about that. You went and one of your experiments was you put on excessive amounts of fertility as though you truly like, this is what it would take to get 450 bushels. You didn't get it. And so it does tell you that the idea that sustainability practices somehow, are anti-yield. Well, the converse of that is excessive amounts of inputs don't create yield either.
Well, we've heard people say a lot of times, we've for years entered these NCGA contests, these high yield contests, and they're not a thing where you brag. What they are is there's a lot of farmers that do a lot of research, and we just try to, put that in and maybe gain a little bit of money back, and then gain also a lot of knowledge from it. It's our research and development is what it is. So when we talk about those things, people think, oh, well, I can make 500 bushel. It's just not feasible. I won't make any money at it. No, you can't even make it. I'm not going to tell you there's a great handful of farmers that's make 500, and it's not because that they went out there and just dumped a bunch of fertilizer on them. Any of them would tell you that. And you can't buy that. You just can't. It's like Kelly was talking about. So, that being said, we're trying to prove the point that, maybe it takes a little bit of more just. And
the research, and it's a high yield area, but it really is research. When you talk about their contests, I'll have 7 or 8 entries. I might only put in 2 of them because the research doesn't always work out. Yeah. But that's what we're trying to do.
Nobody talks about, let's make a category for failed research.
I'd would.
Let's make a category. Yeah. Failed research. Who put the most in it made the least?
Yeah. Oh, right. So we're always trying different things, and it doesn't always work out. But what that research is leading me to believe is that all of that synthetic fertility doesn't buy that yield. And to go higher, I need to work in tune with Mother Nature, which is the hybrid between the two systems.
I was just thinking of a future episode of the Granary Show where it's just called Failed Research, and it's a solo episode. It's just Chad, just Chad sitting there saying,
and you just need to start, and I'll just start talking. We'll talk for 30 minutes about I'll just keep talking.
And that's just what he's done in the last year.
Yeah, that was last year. 2023. This is what I'm doing.
On that thing when you flinged out excessive amounts of fertility, again, I think that the bigger illustration isn't that, oh, well, it's impossible to buy 450 bushel yield no matter what. The other illustration, I think, is it tells you that on the flip side, being completely sustainable, regenerative, using less of these inputs, it makes it more plausible that obviously if excessive fertility doesn't get you here, why would decreasing fertility somehow be a failure? And that's where I think the future goes.
Yeah, and we've all learned. My NCGA 2 years ago was yielding less than outside of where I spiced up the spot. That block was a failure, and it's a balance issue. Kelly says it all the time. You got to keep things in balance, and nitrogen is definitely the fastest way to get it out of balance. But at the end of the day, we all got to learn from our mistakes, so we know what to do going forward. And that's why we all have test plots on all of our farms. It's to see what's working and what's not.
It's pretty amazing when you start, and you're sitting there and you plant that crop and you pour your heart into it, and then it goes the other way, and then you look back on through the year, and at first glance, I promise you, when you run the machine through it, at first glance, you're pissed off.
Yeah.
Like, you're pissed off. Johnny's calling me like, I'm done with this mess.
Yeah.
I am done. And then, but as you start diving into it and you get 1 week behind you or 10 days behind you, 20 days, because you keep thinking about it. You're going to think about it for a whole year.
Yeah.
And as you get behind you, you start thinking about what you've learned. And that's where that's put us where we're at.
I was thinking,
No, shouldn't.
I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Gabe Brown's book says, and this shocks a lot of people because obviously regenerative and organic are pretty distant. I mean, there's a lot of disparity between the two of them. But he says, here's the thing. He said, a practice that relies on a lot of tillage is terrible. And we know that more now than we did just a decade or so ago, the degradation to soil structure and the PEDs and the profile, and all that stuff. You stopped tilling. You came home from Murray State. What are you, 44, 43?
42.
Okay, so 20 years ago, you said my dad and I were no-tilling in the 90s. You didn't do it necessarily because you thought, it's all about regenerative practices. You did it as a conservation of moisture.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I believe that agriculture still overtills by double, by 3 times.
Yeah. Where we are, we're predominantly no-till or very minimal till is all we are. But it's from an erosion standpoint is why we're doing it.
I thought it was moisture.
Well, both. I mean, it's going to come in hand. If you get that residue on top of the ground, that does hold moisture. But also, we got some of the most erodible soil in the U.S., so we get excessive rainfall, we'll wash to pieces. So
Even though it's not that hilly.
Texture.
Yeah, the silt and the sand separates, and it's just a big mess. So that's why we do it where we are. But at the end of the day, we're doing it for multiple reasons now. Used to, it was just for erosion, and now it's for moisture holding capacity, the biology that's going on in the soil that we're trying to build and stuff like that. Some of the best yields we can have is if some ground's been in CRP for 20, 30, 40 years, and we can bring it out of CRP and not do a lot to it somehow. Sometimes you can get lucky. The biology that's in that soil, you won't have anything that yields like that.
We have the same experience.
Yeah. We're supposed to rest in a year, right?
Yeah.
When every 7 years, you're supposed to rest.
That's right.
It's tough to make this.
The bank doesn't allow that.
Yeah, that's all
I'm
right.
not sure your bank wants that to happen.
You think you could take that argument to the bank? Hey, this was my rest year.
Yeah.
So, unless you want to go against the Bible, you're going to need to.
Yeah.
When did you go and tell your old man, when did you come in and say, we're going to stop doing all this tillage, or we're going to plant no-till, we're going to start doing when did you start introducing these, and what was Gene's reaction?
My dad was actually the one that started with no-till way back when I was 10, 12 years old. And we were no-tilling soybeans. You were a 50-50 rotation then. So we were no-tilling soybeans in the corn stalks.
Drill probably back then?
Drill with a 750 no-till drill. And we were drilling, that's a lot of work. And we're drilling, or not drilling, we were no-tilling the corn into the bean stubble. Then, when I started farming and we started with some corn on corn, we were tilling that. And in 2012, we went to 100% no-till. But my dad has always been an advocate for that. He didn't believe that, he believed it was wasting time and money. And he believed, with our hills, the erosion, my dad has always been an advocate for that.
You started doing strip till, which goes down the road of regenerative, less reduced tillage. And I thought it was new because I just came to your field day a couple years ago. I thought it was the first year of doing it. You said, no, you've been doing it for more than a decade.
Yeah, well, I guess 7, 8 years or something, and our deal was we didn't need to work up all this soil. We knew that. But yet we couldn't get with a little bit of rolling ground we've got, the hill would be just bone dry and the bottom would still be heavy, and we couldn't get planted. When you're no-tilling, Johnny tell you, when you're no-tilling, there's that 2 or 3 days that is perfect. It's always just perfect. And we couldn't, you couldn't plant a crop in that window.
Yep.
So we're looking at different avenues, and then we're looking also into ways to cut fertilizer, to save money, to just till in a spot, to never put any, chloride, if you will, or salt out in the middle where the biology is. It's multiple things that we've looked into that. And that's kind of why we do it now.
About the merging, and I'll go around. We'll start with you. You talked about sustainability and high yield emerging. What are we going to take from organic? I know what I think. I think it's certainly they till the hell out of stuff and they use too much diesel and they do a lot of stuff, but they always have been focused on reduction of harsher chemistry. I think that we should probably
maybe
take
reduction
that.
of yield.
Well, they do that too.
Yeah.
Organic practices.
No, in the organic spot, the way that they use cover crops, the way they use the crop rotation, things like that's the part to take out of organic. Like I don't want to raise soybeans anymore, but I have the rye and the triticale out there to chop it, things like that. This year we're going to try some early planted cover crops. Now, I want to do that because I want to make the cover crop a revenue stream for the cattle, but the part from the organic thing that you could be taking, that early cover crop, what if someday that minimalizes the post chemical application, or what if it even eliminates it? I'm not suggesting that it will, but I sure want to find out. That's what I think we take from organic.
The chemistry and the covers.
Yes, the use of covers instead of chemistry, maybe.
What does organic lend to agriculture that maybe, you'll never probably be certified organic, and there's a lot of reasons why. But what would you see you taking, or more of agriculture taking, from organic?
Well, I don't know if it's technically the way organic's working, but they're getting more value for their crops because they're selling a certain way. And I think we've been talking the last year or so about how we're going to be able to get more quality in our grain, stuff like that. They're doing that to a certain extent. Their grain might not be a better quality, but they're selling it as a premium product. We're going to try to do the same thing. And I think the future of that's where that's going. And you're learning from these guys here that have either failed or been very successful with organic the last 10, 15 years.
You brought that up. At this very table, a friend of mine lives farms over here in northeastern part of the county. He's an organic guy, and that was it's not because he's a zealot. It's because he said the premiums. You guys were selling $12 beans. He was selling $30 beans because organic. So there's that, and nobody in ag, knowing how thin the margins are, should ever ridicule a way to get a new margin. To get a premium.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I know they don't always have the best quality from start to finish, but they do have some premium on a certain side. I mean, insects can get into it. They have a lot of things that they fight that we might not. But if you watch what they do, they're trying to sell a premium of some sort, and that's what we need to do too on our side. And I think we can, with the story that we're starting to tell, how we're starting to farm from sustainability to regenerative ag, stuff like that. It's going to really play a big part into it in the future.
So, when me and you first started talking about yields and things like that, me and you had a discussion that I like to learn from the people who are in vegetables, right? I mean, you got to think outside the box. And these organic guys definitely have to think outside the box, whether it's weed control or straw or putting plastic down. There's a lot of things they've done to think outside the box. But on the same note, I like to take one or two things from it. I just hope that, I hope that we can give them something and they can be open-minded about something, because a lot of guys that I get that are organic are just, think I'm just killing earth.
They kind of preach. They kind of get a little preachy.
Oh, man.
But I think another thing to look at, we've all been conditioned the last 20, 30 years, maybe forever, the way we've been farming is the more we make, the more money we make. The more yield we make, the more money we make. It's not that they're true in that way, and that could be the future for us too. We might not make the highest yield, but the quality's good, the weight of the grain's good, that the nutrient value of that's good. That's what we're going to get paid on. And we don't have to make that 400 bushel. We can make 300 to be the same money. 100. Yeah, whatever it is.
I mean, Kelly talked about, the last couple of years, we've talked about putting CI scores or something, or into a grain, or being able to know what nutrient value is in that piece of grain. Those things. And I mean, you're sticking your head in the sand to know that stuff ain't coming.
Because it affects, if we sell quality product to somebody that has cattle like Kelly, then what does it do to your meat?
Wait. You mean another cow? No one has cattle like Kelly. Yeah. I mean, his are very specific.
Temple does.
Well, they're kind of crazy. And Matt Miles once said one of his bulls weighed 10,000 pounds, almost ran him over. Big, tough Matt, former college football player, like an old crippled heifer walked by, and
he threw a shovel at it.
Yeah, he threw a shovel at it. Economic drive decision making, you said that a number of times. You can make the case for the economic aspect that John is saying here, nutrient value or traceability or environmental footprint. There are, and a lot of us in ag think the consumer's cheap. You know why? Because people in ag are cheap. We think everyone is cheap like us, and that's not true. There wouldn't be Whole Foods if there were. Yeah. I think that the economics of it are going to make it so that you can derive a bigger value even from corn, but it's going to be human-grade corn, and it's going to have more beta-carotene or something like this. There's the corn that goes over to the ethanol factory, and there's the corn that goes to consumption.
I agree.
And that will be a part of regenerative will play into that, because that way we can tout its environmental bit of lack of environmental harm.
Yes,
You're looking. I feel like he was looking at him going.
it's the sustainability market and the potential inset market that is out there. The things that we're trying to accomplish there, the nutrient density piece that is potentially coming. All of those could create two different corn markets. You have the corn that goes into ethanol. You might have the corn that goes into cattle feed because it has a higher nutrient density to raise nutrient dense beef, nutrient dense pork, chicken, all of those things. It really would be a diversification of the crop.
What thing about organic are you never going to adopt? The preachy mindset?
Well, I try not to. I've tried to learn to never say never. Because every time I say never, I'd be like, what I do next year? You'd be like, I'll be doing a video on it. We'll be like, oh, you need to get that. I'm like, I can't. I can't.
I don't think you should ever say the words always or never because that's the finite game. Yeah. And we're just always trying to improve.
And then, when you get hard headed or stubborn enough or think you've known enough that you will say, oh, I'd never do what them guys do.
But I think all of us would agree going back to true conventional till and working the ground 6-7 passes is probably the first thing we would not want to do.
I can't imagine doing that.
The labor, the equipment.
Right now that I work up, I got probably 1,000 acres a year that we work just deep tillage. I'm talking about just gut the earth. You can smell the dirt. It's smoking biology. I'm killing biology every day. But then again, you have this whole point of let's just talk about organic matter, right? What do they say? You can never raise your organic matter. Or years to raise your organic matter, right?
I told you that. I heard an alleged agronomy guy at a conference I spoke at get on stage and was doing a bunch of charts, and he said, this guy was revered. Everybody was writing notes down. He says, you'll never change your organic matter in your lifetime. And I didn't think it made sense then. And you guys are talking.
We're 20. We hadn't had any cotton since 06.
Yeah.
All right. So we're approaching 20 years.
This will be the 20th season, right?
Anybody that runs cotton in Alabama in that red dirt, it's very tough. You're going to be looking at it from a half, 3/4. Man, it's good if you have 1% organic matter. Am I right?
That's the same thing, yeah.
So it's going to be down there at it. Cotton's a taker, it's a tree. So, but when we started growing grain, and we putting 3 crops in 2 years, and we're putting all that stubble. We're not cutting any straw, or we're not baling any straw. We're not hauling off any corn stalks and stubble. We putting that back in, and we're working it back in. Now, I don't know whether you left it there and it just died, and we didn't have Uncle Bob then. We would have smoked it down, but if we worked that back in, all of our organic matter now, I don't know that I have anything under 2.
So you've changed it a lot.
Yeah. 2.5, and then some of it's up to 3.5, 3.8.
And it took it 18, 19 years.
Yeah. It's 20 years, but I have tripled.
And that dirt, triple the organic. And that dirt's even a different color.
That's right. And I've talked to Kelly about it before. Especially when you first work it, how it is, and it'll kind of mellow down. And I'm not saying that we work every acre. I'm just saying there's a spot for it that we have to. And you got to understand how compacted our soils are getting. You can put those radishes in it, and they just grow up. Yeah. Like there'll be this much radish sticking out. It'd be about that deep in the ground. It just grows up out top.
So by the way, the takeaway from that is those are regenerative type practices that you didn't do 20 years ago. And you're chalking up to, first off, getting off the cotton, because cotton's a real nutrient drain. And then also, so now you got a bunch of more biomass that you're putting back on the field, and then also reduction of tillage.
And now, but we'll never grow any wheat better than growing it right behind cotton or right behind soybeans.
Yeah.
So there's a. We used to have all 3 or 4 crops going, and there's nothing better than that rotation. But with the price of cotton pickers now, you kind of have to pick whether you're going to buy a grain bin or you're going to buy a cotton picker because it's the same thing. But what I'm saying is, where we till at the next year, we may be strip till, and then we try to break that up to where it's every 2 or 3 years, but we just have so much compaction.
You're just trying to break the compaction.
We're just trying to break the compaction. Now, maybe we're going to put some liquid in.
I want you to take a bull stand and say you'll either never or always. Do a never.
Do a never. Tell me a never. Oof. I don't need it.
You'll never get done marveling at my intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay.
That will
You'll always be amazed at how awesome I am.
Yeah.
See, there you go. I just did it.
Yeah.
Give me a never.
I'll never work every acre up in 1 year. I can tell you that.
That's a good one. You will.
You always have some ground.
Plow?
We do not own a breaking plow.
See?
No.
There you go.
What do you call a raking plow?
Turning plow?
A moldboard plow?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
What about on the front of cover crops? Why is it still is only like less than 10% of crops get a cover crop? I think 8 or 7 or something like that. I read it just in the last year.
And
it's because everybody will tell you, I can't make that work here. That's the reason, right?
My dad used to say it's hard enough to raise one crop, let alone two.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of that out there. And
Too far north, we hear that all the time. Too cold.
there's two. You know,
Crops come off
back
too
when we were
late.
looking at CI scores and things like that, you know, a year ago or so, there were farmers in Minnesota that actually said putting in the cover crop raised their CI score because the cover crop didn't sequester enough carbon to lower it.
Okay.
You know, so being too far north is a legitimate concern. And then, you know, like a couple of the questions that we got asked at Commodity Classic, the cover crop, people view it as an expense. And if you're not selling the carbon and you don't have the cattle, you know, and you're not part of an EQIP program, you know, whatever, it is an expense.
Yeah.
It very much is. You know, I keep tweaking my cover crop because I need to use it for conservation. And the fact that I can sell the carbon really helps. But I really need the cover crop for conservation, but I keep tweaking it to try to make it a revenue stream of cattle feed. And like this year where we're going to put it out sooner to try to get more growth, that's why. And so the reason that cover crops haven't taken off is they're viewed as an expense.
Well, too, it's a timing deal. You know, maybe we hadn't figured out. One is you've done a lot of work on the blend. One is I don't know that you'll ever figure the blend out. Never. You'll never figure out the blend. I don't know if you'll ever figure out the rates. You know, Brewers talked about what, 10 pounds?
Yeah.
You know, how much cover crop you put out?
There's some stuff we put out 10 pounds, and I never want to use cereal rye again. Probably.
Yeah.
I've had so many bad experiences.
So that's a never.
That's a never. I will say that probably. I never want to use cereal rye because of the bad occurrences I've had with it.
Yep.
And I think I've said this before. When people think of cover crop, the default goes to cereal rye. And then when you have a bad experience, you never want to do it again.
Yeah.
For us, where we are, I think the biggest thing is the second part of what he said, or the second part of the cover crop. Nobody really treats it like a crop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost set up for failure. But where we are in the South, too, if we plant it in September like Kelly does, by this time of year, it'd be waist high. By May, it'd be shoulder high.
Yep.
And that's a nightmare. So it's a little bit different where Kelly's going to do it for grazing and it's never going to get that height.
Yeah.
But it's still going to build the root.
More off season than he has, and therefore the crop get bigger. I like your point that nobody ever treats it like a crop, and that's a true statement. Remember, one of my friends from Tennessee said, Grandpa told him, a man can justify anything. You know who told me that?
Yeah, probably me.
It was you that told me that. I'm going to tell you one thing
I'm still working on that race car thing. I ain't really figured out how to justify it.
Marie likes it.
Yeah. There you go.
If I don't have it, I'll be divorced.
I'd say you can justify.
There you go.
I wasn't going to quote my grandfather because he was actually an insane old lunatic, and he didn't say anything that was really quotable. But I will say this. You say man can justify anything.
No way I'd say
what else?
Ever. Would you?
You can look at the cover cropping thing, and I think half the people that say I've tried it, it failed, set out to make it a failure.
Yeah.
They wanted. They were only doing it to prove to themselves that there's a reason why they never did it.
If I had to cover crop right now, I told Kelly, like, I've got to try some of this. I've got to do better at it. I've got to work towards it. But if I had to go cover crop right now, I promise you, I can tell you 20 things, 20 ways that I don't need it. And I don't need to do that. And that's a terrible idea. Like, I promise you, I would have the mindset of people.
Because you're justifying it.
Yeah. But there's guys down in the South where we are, especially in the town I'm in, there's guys that have really figured out how to make it work for them. It's just they're set up better than we are, and they raise crops like cotton and stuff like that. They figured out how to really make it work. But at the end of the day, you let it get too big where we are, it'll set you up for failure if you're not careful.
We just need to run some cows on it.
Yeah, I need cows. I may never have cows though. I may never have cows. We don't have any fences anymore, so they're
telling me he's
to start all over.
The voice down. We'll put up a wire. Let's put up one wire. How many cars go past your road today? Let's put up. You know how many cars go past his house?
The mail guy.
Zero.
Yeah.
The mail guy and Amber. That's it. You know,
and she's on foot. She didn't even do it. Yeah. What about if the two biggest failures, not failures, because then this person watches is going to say, "What do you know about it?" You know, whatever. We overtill, and I think cover crops should be utilized more. Those are the two things that I think. I wish that conventional did more of it. And I point this all the time, like that ground's worth $15,000 an acre and you're letting it sit barren, exposed to the soil, to the elements from sometime around Halloween in this part of the world until May 1st. That's wrong. I mean, ground should have something growing on it.
I agree it should. And I think that's why Mother Nature brings weeds up. Weeds are there because she wants to cover the earth. We all think they're a pest. I think that we're working against her instead of with her. I think that we need to look at balancing the soil and using cover crops, balancing it from a base saturation perspective, and then using cover crops. I think you're going to have less weed pressure then. I think you're going to have better soil health. I think you have better yields then and a better ROI. But you have to commit and you have to do it all, and it doesn't happen overnight.
You're going to have cover crops 10 years from now.
I mean, I'm going to have them next year after that speech. Like after that spiel right there, like I want to be like,
Yeah. Get it wrote down, Kelly. He needs to write it out.
and then cattle. I'm going to have me 2 acres cover crop and not a cow one.
Matt's got 1 cow coming.
Does he?
That's
Well,
what I heard.
the way you threw
One he's going to put in the freezer.
the way you threw a shovel that. All right. You are already doing the no-till. Are you going to have cover crops 2 years from now?
Yeah, we have cover crops now. We have to manage them a little bit different.
Yeah.
And
you don't think cattle's going to be a part of that?
I don't think cattle's going to be a part of it.
I mean,
I don't know. The cattle prices today, well, I don't know. I can't buy cows right now.
maybe if you did, you would maybe let somebody else market your cattle.
It might not be a good idea to buy cows today at all-time highs. So
That's probably a true statement. Some people didn't buy them at all-time high because Kelly sold them too cheap. Yeah,
that's right.
But I mean,
poor Temple can't afford gas now.
Yeah.
I would really like to run I'd like to run a strip till. And if it wasn't so much, I hadn't figured out how to do it right, but I would love to take our drill and block those rows off and drill in the middles of the strip till. Like after you strip tilled and just drill it and then it'd be kind of flat and mashed down, I think that would be the coolest perspective
He's
ever.
going with what he wants it to look like. He's going after that. We did an episode about pretty versus proper.
Man, but you'd have a zone that has fertility in it. Then you would have all this in the middles out here. And you would have, you could plant it early and you'd have the best of both worlds. And it would be great.
He's trying to put on English garden. English garden on a corn maze. All right.
He's got tile out here in his field and his humps are still this big. And he's
that's right. You're supposed to let it settle. Anyway.
You're supposed to, really?
Yeah, that's
really.
what they tell
me. See me, I worked mine down in a week. Just mashed it. Just killed all the biology in it.
Anyway.
It was great.
I said it's a topic. If you look it up, it's where you're going. You've been going there for a while. Sometimes you say things, and I'm like, that seems like it's very accurate. Are more people going to be on this train that you're on, or do you think that really you're going to always be an outlier? Regenerative adoption.
I think oh man, that's not everybody will adopt it. There will be more and more people that start to adopt these things, I believe, as time goes on.
According to the check is.
Yeah, it's according to the economics of it. Yes, absolutely.
Well, there's not a lot of economics in going out and fall tilling, other than people say, well, it gets my ground warms up in the spring better.
Yes.
That's the only reason I've ever heard. Or they think that it has weed suppression, which is obviously.
And we have 24-row planters that plant 50 acres an hour when you order. So we really need to speed up.
We need to speed up. Yeah. I think more people will start to adopt this because I do believe it's the coming thing. I think the world is changing a little bit, and I believe that the nutrient density piece is coming. But I was wrong about the CI piece. Maybe I'll be wrong about nutrient density, but it sure looks like nutrient density is coming.
I always say you're my equipment guy among XtremeAg. I just thought about going out there in like 1985 and driving a 12-foot wide drill over all those hills to put in several thousand acres of soybeans, and it made me bored of just thinking about doing it. Just thinking about it.
Do you understand when he said 750 drill? Do you understand the amount of bearings he put in the back? I mean, it takes 2 of them. And we used to get them from Saginaw down there. Remember they made down there next to us, they made the power steering pumps. My mama worked on the line, and they would have bearings they rejected. It was the same bearing that went to 750 drill. And like my uncle would bring it to us like in a sleeve. It'd be a sleeve of these bearings, we'd be knocking them in there.
That's when I started farming, we had a 750 no-till drill, and that was my job to put in the beans. It'd be like 1,000 acres.
I can just think of doing it, and it makes me bored. All right, we asked the question, how conventional, regenerative, and organic practices are ultimately going to merge. You got to hear it from Kelly Garrett, Chad Henderson, and Johnny Verell. I want to point out also that I never insulted Alabama farm ground. It was Mike Evans, his agronomist and business partner, who saw soil samples from my farm and said, is this really a farm in Indiana? The ground is so shitty, it reminds me of Chad Henderson.
That is a true.
So I don't know who got insulted more, me or him, but that was Mike Evans' statement. I'm like, well, is that insulting me or him or both of us? So
for a minute there, I was like, oh yeah.
So I'm telling you, screw you, Evans. Anyway, till next time, thanks for being here. Unless you're Mike Evans, you're always welcome at this table. And pull up a chair and sit here figuratively and enjoy a drink with us while we're talking about everything like, for instance, the regenerative, organic, and conventional farming practices that we all believe will merge in some fashion or another. Till next time, thanks for being here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Just go on YouTube and type in XtremeAg. Also share this with somebody you think can enjoy it, because we've got so many things out there at XtremeAg.farm and on YouTube, videos that you can learn to farm better, and also, more importantly, just feel like you're part of the crew. Till next time, cheers. Yeah, that's a true story. Evans and Soul.